Now, Marie, so you are now part of the video. Congratulations. Welcome to a quick video talking about modes of selection for evolution, featuring Marie Zenith as she leaves. So we did talk about this in class, but I want to go over it again. When we talk about whether or not a population is evolving, we use what's called the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium or equation. And effectively what we're looking at for a specific gene is, does the frequency of the big A and the little a change over time? So big A is going to be what we reference to P, and little a is how we mathematically talk about Q. So big A, little a, P, and Q, it always equals 100%. Now if the gene has two alleles, that means we have three different types of genotypes. We have P squared, which is also big A, homozygous dominant, 2PQ, which is big A, heterozygous dominant, and Q squared, which is little a, homozygous recessive. Those three proportions always equal 1. So if I'm 100% big A or little a, I'm going to have 0% big A, or little a. And if I'm 50-50 big A, or 50% P and 50% Q, I'm going to be about 50% big A, and 25% big A, or little a. If we see these proportions shift enough between populations and generations, we say that a species is evolving. So there's three modes of selection. The null hypothesis, or the assumption, is that a population's genotype and its distribution in terms of big A, little a, should sort of fit a normal distribution, where the number of individuals at the average height, average weight, average skin color, average any trait, is going to be right in the middle. There'll be max and min values, but those are going to be way less common. So we often sort of think about, for example, this polygenic expression of skin tone, where individuals tend to be in the middle, and as you go to either extreme, it might be far less common. Now, there's three types of ways in which natural selection, fitness over time, changes this distribution. The first is what we call directional. And directional selection is where you basically take the bell curve and you shift it to one extreme or the other. So for example, if we took an average human population, put them at the equator, over time we would probably see a shift in the distribution of dominant alleles to the right as people acquired darker and darker skin because it was more fit. You take the same population and you shift them to the Antarctic, they're probably going to shift to the left because the recessive alleles are more favored. So directional selection is just when the bell curve shifts to the left or the right. The second type of selection is called the stabilizing selection, and I call this the Goldilocks mode of selection. It's not too cold, it's not too hot, it's just right. For some reason, the extremes of the phenotype are terrible. It's not good to be tall, it's not good to be short, it's perfect to be average. So what we see over time across populations is more and more individuals, through selective pressure and natural selection, have offspring with the intermediate phenotype. Good examples of this would be human head size. There's disadvantages to having a small head or a large head. A medium-sized head is appropriate. And the last type of selection that we can talk about is disruptive selection. And this is the hardest to find, and it usually is where either extreme phenotype is favored over the heterozygous individual. This is where people either really like cold porridge or hot porridge, if I'm using the Goldilocks analogy, and the porridge that usually is just right is terrible. So you either really favor large heads or small heads. A medium-sized head is not favored. This often causes two distinct populations to emerge, and if we think about this definition earlier from the week, it almost always means that we're going to start seeing subspecies, where there's two populations that are starting to show very distinct and different genetic behaviors and traits. Now, when we talk about these types of selections over time, we then have to ask the question, are you evolving or are you not evolving? And we use the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium and the types of selection to better understand that. Here's a good example looking at the distribution of melanin throughout different South American countries. And you can see that generally there is a selective pressure towards becoming more and more melanin as you go further towards the equator. So, to evolve or not to evolve. If a population is not evolving, we say that it's in Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. The population is not evolving. This is incredibly hard to find. It is a needle in a haystack. It is the golden ticket to get into Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. You're not going to get it. So, 5 assumptions of a population is not evolving. The first is this: there's no natural selection. The environment does not favor or disfavor any certain types of phenotypes. If there are no favored traits, you don't evolve. If there are favored traits, say big beaks and the snail kites, you will evolve. 2, there are no mutations. I like this third eye on this little frog. If there are no mutations, a population won't evolve. Now, because mutations happen all the time when individuals make sperm and eggs due to meiosis, this is not possible. Mutations can be new, they can be different, they can be better, they can be worse. All of those occur. Finding a population that doesn't have mutations is incredibly hard. The third is there's no migration. There's no new individuals coming in or leaving the population from other populations of the same species. So if you have two frog species, if they can't get across the river, they're not going to evolve. 4, large populations make it very hard for allele frequencies to change. If you live in a really small population, there's a lot more instability with the amount of gene flow and alleles changing. If you have a really large population, it's very hard to evolve. And the last is, you won't evolve if there's random mating. If individuals just reproduce with other random individuals because they see all frogs as being equally attractive, there will not be evolution. But if large eyes with large pupils is an attractive trait in frogs, then there will be non-random mating, which means there will be sexual selection of traits, the sexy sun hypothesis from last unit. So if there is non-random mating, a population will evolve. So again, a population will not evolve if all 5 of these are true. There's no natural selection, there's no mutations, there's no migration, the population is large, and there's no non-random mating. But if you sexually select for mates, you have a small population, you have migration, you have mutations, or there's natural selection, there will be evolution. It takes all 5 of these to be true. To have no evolution, only one of these has to be true for evolution to occur. So, what we're doing with our reindeer modeling today, Friday, and into next week is thinking about when we manipulate the environment of caribou or not, do these 3 different types of selection actually occur, and are these populations evolving? Thanks for sticking with me. Congrats, Marie, who's still not back, so she's been gone for quite a while. Not sure where she went. I'm going to go find her. Enjoy the rest of your day.